Speaking of moments, you've been, as you mentioned, your career with the Fever. First six, though, were tough, obviously. They weren't as easy. You guys have made the playoffs the last two. What's been the big turnaround? How have you viewed the way the team has grown organically?
What happens when a player who has carried a franchise for nearly a decade finally decides to speak without filters? That's exactly what Kelsey Mitchell did, and the WNBA hasn't stopped buzzing since. Her comments weren't empty praise. They were a calculated, deliberate reset of how we talk about the Indiana Fever, Caitlin Clark, and women's basketball as a whole. The beauty of Mitchell's words lies not in volume, but in precision. She didn't shout. She didn't posture. She simply told the truth. And the truth carried the weight of years spent in silence, grinding through losing seasons when Indiana was nothing more than a punchline. So when she finally chose her moment to speak, everyone listened. The question is, was it admiration, rivalry, or a new declaration of who really sets the standard in Indiana? And that's why this video matters. Because we're not just replaying another soundbite, we're unpacking the exact moment when Kelsey Mitchell's voice shifted the narrative of an entire league. Stick around, because this story is bigger than one quote. It's about a dynasty in the making, and how one veteran guard just gave it her blessing.
And then you bring in Caitlin, who changed the world, changed the dynamic of basketball. And as a friend and as a player, you grow to appreciate her because, certain doors have opened because she's come to the Fever, and you have to respect that. And I love the teammate and person in her because she's accepted it with so much grace and even welcomed us with open arms to, make this thing happen. So I think it just took a lot of big pieces to make, what it.
To understand why Mitchell's statement hit like a thunderclap, you have to rewind. For years, she was the only reason Indiana basketball wasn't completely forgotten. 5-win seasons, empty arenas, headlines that never reached beyond the local sports page. Kelsey carried that weight, and every time she sat at a press conference table, she was asked to smile and talk about building blocks while knowing the foundation was still sinking beneath her. She wasn't just playing basketball, she was surviving it. That's why her words now resonate so deeply, because she could have been bitter. She could have resented the sudden spotlight that Clark brought, but she didn't. She embraced it. And that choice speaks louder than any box score ever could. Mitchell essentially told the world, "I've been through the fire, and I welcome the flame." That's not just leadership, it's transformation. And before we dive deeper, let me pause for a quick technical note. If you're watching this and you want to see more breakdowns that cut past the surface-level chatter, make sure you hit that subscribe button. It might seem like a small click, but on YouTube's algorithm, it changes everything. It signals to the system that you value deep analysis, and it helps push content like this into feeds where it actually belongs. So if you're enjoying this perspective, subscribe, like the video, and drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to know how you read Mitchell's words.
You've changed the world in so many ways. You've done it with so much grace. And I'm so happy to take the floor with you, to be a part of this experience. I want to tell you to give yourself some grace, kid. You've done a lot of things that not a lot of people can do. And from me to you, I'm always going to be a fan. I'm always going to be in your corner. I'm always going to be in your backcourt.
When Caitlin Clark walked into the league, the entire gravitational pull of women's basketball shifted overnight. National broadcasters moved games. Arenas sold out. Storylines that once struggled to make page 2 suddenly dominated sports media. But here's the twist. Those external forces only matter when the locker room itself buys in. And Mitchell's endorsement proved just that. Think about it. She had every reason to protect her turf. This was her franchise. She was the one signing autographs when nobody else cared. Yet instead of bristling at the attention Clark brought, Mitchell leaned in and amplified it. That kind of choice is rare in sports. Stars often protect their shine, but here, the veteran decided that Indiana was stronger with 2 sons instead of 1. And in doing so, she gave permission for the rest of the team to follow suit. Her comment wasn't a handoff, it was a statement of expansion. She essentially said, "This is no longer just my battle, it's our moment." The message was subtle, but the impact? Massive. It told fans, teammates, and even the critics that the new era wasn't a clash, it was a coalition.
But like, you've been with Indiana through the thick and thin. You've been with them since, like we was talking, like we about to go get our rhythm on Indiana. You've been there, you stuck through until now being in the semifinals. what does that feel like? And for people watching, like girls, boys, if they athletes, not athletes, what does it feel like to stick through something and now see it come into full fold?
One of Mitchell's most powerful lines wasn't about wins, stats, or even leadership. It was her advice to Clark: give yourself grace. Simple words, but in context, it was everything. Because what she was really saying is that even the brightest stars need space to breathe. You don't have to conquer the entire basketball universe in a single season. This wasn't a veteran patronizing a rookie. This was someone who'd lived through the grind, telling the next generation not to let the weight of expectation crush them. And in a league where pressure often burns players out before they ever reach their ceiling, that's a message worth gold. It was both personal and universal, a reminder that growth is a process, not an event. And then came the $200 fine moment. Clark joked about referees on social media, and the internet predictably exploded. Was she arrogant? Was she careless? Outside voices spun it 100 different ways. But in the Fever's locker room, it was just comedy. Mitchell revealed it showed Clark's humor, something cameras rarely capture. That one story cut through the noise. Outsiders saw controversy, teammates saw connection. And that's the difference between headlines and reality.
You guys have made the playoffs the last two. What's been the big turnaround? How have you viewed the way the team has grown organically?
Oh, man, I think a big shout out to the organization taking time to rebuild. I think our draft picks ended up coming big. Lexi Hall was a big draft pick, and then you get Kaylin, and then you get AB. And so you culminate that together with, my experience and having to, go through a couple things before they got there. I think it was just like a match made in heaven, really, because I was, still at a young age to really, vibe and get to know these players for who they were. And then you bring in Kaylin, who changed the world, changed the dynamic of basketball. And as a friend and as a player, you grow to appreciate her because, certain doors have opened because she's come to the Fever, and you have to respect that.
What makes this season's Fever story so compelling is that it wasn't smooth. It was a gauntlet, start to finish. This was a team that had been mocked for years, suddenly clawing its way into the semifinals against defending champions. They weren't supposed to be there, but they refused to listen. And the fight took its toll. Injuries piled up, rotations shifted, and by the decisive Game 5 against Las Vegas, the Fever were running on fumes. Still, Mitchell played like someone with nothing left to save. She dropped buckets, created plays, and in overtime, pushed until her own body betrayed her, leaving the court with severe cramps that required immediate treatment. That image of her being helped off wasn't weakness. It was proof of investment. She had emptied the tank for Indiana. For a player who has lived through bottom-dwelling seasons, that kind of playoff stage was validation. Even though the series ended, the league took notice. This was not the same Indiana. And the woman at the heart of it had proven she wasn't just a survivor anymore. She was the engine of a contender.
Now, you were an MVP finalist this year with our own Chiney Ogwumike even saying that you had the best season of any guard this year in the league. What has it been like to get that kind of recognition and get your flowers?
Oh, I appreciate it. I've been to a lot throughout the course of my career with the Indiana Fever. It's been like my longest, ever. So it's for me, it's a humbling experience to kind of see myself make waves from where it started to where it is now. And just kind of respect the game, lean on the game as far as creating bonds and friendships. And now you get to see us do that now, a couple years later.
Dynasties don't happen by accident. They happen when a team discovers its spine. For the Fever, that structure is becoming clear. Aaliyah Boston dominates the paint, giving them a reliable anchor who can tilt the floor. Lexi Hull plays the glue role, doing the dirty work, spacing the floor, and bringing grit on both ends. Caitlin Clark bends defenses like few players in history, pulling gravity the second she crosses half court. And then there's Mitchell, the scoring weapon who slices defenses apart and sets the emotional tone. Together, they form what some are already calling Indiana's Fab Four. And it's not just hype, the chemistry is visible. When Clark pushes tempo, Mitchell finds her spots. When Boston establishes deep position, Hull cuts into the gaps. Every piece feeds the other. And most importantly, egos don't seem to be in the way. Mitchell herself even hinted she'd take less money if it meant keeping this group together. That's not lip service in modern sports. That's rare loyalty. It's the recognition that some windows only open once, and when they do, You sacrifice to keep them open.
Oh man, it's unbelievable experience. It's a moment that I don't want to, take for granted. I want to cherish it as much as I possibly can. Like I said, I want to use this moment to as a moment to not grow. And so hopefully the mental preparation that I've been through and the things I've been through can kind of help me get through these moments. And then just, loving basketball for what it is and just, loving the game and having fun with it.
Now, contrast what we see on the court with what we hear off it. Media voices speculate daily. Is there tension between the veterans and Clark? Are expectations too high? Is the attention unfair? The narratives multiply like wildfire because that's what outside noise does. It sells. But the reality inside the locker room tells a different story. Mitchell calling Clark not just a teammate, but a friend, changes everything. In pro sports, where egos and jealousy often poison chemistry, that word carries weight. Friend is not a casual label. It signals trust. It signals unity. And when your most established veteran calls your brightest new star a friend, you've built something bigger than box scores. It's why the $200 fine became a joke instead of a fracture. It's why Clark's spotlight hasn't dimmed anyone else's shine. It's expanded it. That distinction is what separates teams that implode under hype from those that build dynasties under pressure.
I love the teammate and person in her because she's accepted it with so much grace and even welcomed us with open arms to, make this thing happen. So I think it just took a lot of big pieces to make, what it is now.
What has it been like? Because certainly the world has been focused on her. But what has it been like as a teammate? Because sometimes people are stepping to her, but I feel like you guys are stepping right back in those situations.
I think it's just it's competitive nature, man. You know how it goes. It's just competitive nature. I think that we want to fight to, love on our team and be who we are and respect the game at the same time. So I think it's a lot of just competitive nature at the end of the day.
When you peel back the layers, Kelsey Mitchell's statement wasn't about handing over control. It was about evolution. She was essentially saying, this isn't about me versus Caitlin. It's about us versus the league. That's the difference between surviving and contending. Her recognition of Clark's impact didn't diminish her own legacy. In fact, it elevated it, because it reminded everyone that while Caitlin may have brought the world's attention, Mitchell is the reason there was still a stage to stand on. Without her loyalty, without her years of carrying the load, this moment doesn't even exist. She laid the foundation, Clark lit the fuse. Together, they're building something the league can't ignore. That's why fans are still dissecting her words weeks later. Not because they were dramatic, but because they were authentic. She didn't play politics, she told the truth. And in doing so, she set the tone for the Fever's future.
Prior to game one, I saw Caitlin posted she was fined $200 by the league for stepping on the court. So was there like a locker room pool for her there, or did she take care of that herself?
Man. I'm pretty sure somebody took care of it for her. I love it because as much people don't know this about Caitlin, but she has an unbelievable funny sense of humor. And so I think the tweet was the tweet, but you just have to know CC to know that it's just nothing but love coming from that kid, and her energy and her effort to just kind of support our team is just her way of doing it.
So here's the question that lingers. Did we just watch a hot playoff run? Or did Indiana write the first chapter of a dynasty? Mitchell seems convinced it's the latter. Her words, her loyalty, and her acceptance of Clark's gravity all point in one direction. The Fever aren't just back, they're building something designed to last. And that's where you come in. I want to know what you think. Was Mitchell's statement pure admiration? Or was it a carefully drawn line that redefined her role in Indiana's rise? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read them all, and your perspective matters. If you've made it this far, you clearly care about more than just surface-level highlights. So here's the technical ask. Subscribe to the channel. It's not just a button. It tells YouTube's algorithm that long-form analysis and authentic storytelling deserve to be seen. Hit that subscribe, tap the like, and turn on notifications because together we can make sure this conversation isn't buried by the noise. Indiana is rewriting history, and this is the place to follow it every step of the way.